The Boston Globe has a new, in-depth report on the
Boston
growing
Globe
problem.
today. It's a system, the Boston Globe Spotlight.
In the wake of the
This
Boston...
morning, the Spotlight team unveils a new report.
Most of our stories start with something that is seen.
BostonGlobe.com investigates this morning. Boston Globe Spotlight team. The Boston Globe Spotlight.
Some sort of injustice, some sort of wrongdoing.
From the BostonGlobe.com. The Boston Globe's Michael Resendez.
Something that just screams out at you. Something is wrong with this.
Reports in the Boston Globe.
Member of the Boston Globe Spotlight team, which of course uncovered.
And that's where journalists at the Globe start digging.
Morning, Boston Globe Spotlight team.
Boston Globe today, and what they found really raises the question.
As Spotlight editor, I oversee a team of reporters, and we are responsible for producing some of the most high-impact investigative projects that the Globe will do. We're trying to generally expose a truth that someone else wants to keep secret. And generally speaking, we focus on institutions that have a lot of power and show where things may have gone wrong in the use of their power. In Spotlight, we've written about all kinds of stories about state government, the prison system, political corruption, hospitals, and CEOs making lots of money and then working on corporate boards on the side, various ways in which we feel institutions have sort of strayed from their central purpose. We get, hundreds and hundreds of tips from all kinds of people, and it can come in through email, through phone calls, through snail mail. Everything from people who might have a small consumer gripe to someone who is a whistleblower. It's like a fire hose of things coming at you because you feel as if each one of these could be a story. Taped to one of my cabinets is an envelope. And in the corner, it just said, "Help." I feel like it's just the most graphic reminder that this is how a lot of people look at the work we do. It's like they're desperate, they've gotten to their wits' end, they need help. I think only as an adult have I come to fully realize why my particular work now means so much to me. And part of it is how my parents came to this country.
My family is at the center of my life, and anyone who comes into my life has to be part of this family.
So Melanie, how is school?
And it started 41 years ago when I came to America from Jamaica. I was 13 years old. We felt intensely close because we were all we had. So it's a very hands-on deck, love circle. There is a rhythm and a feel of growing up in a place like Dorchester. And there's a feeling that you are part of something, and you're part of something bigger. And even when I'm asking the question, why do you live here? I'm thinking about, well, why else would somebody live here? It's home. Growing up as a Black immigrant in Boston, you feel a little different. I mean, you just do. You tend to feel sometimes ignored. I take that with me throughout my life and through the stories that I cover, because I ask the question and I care about the people who feel ignored. And also they trust that you're gonna do right by their stories. And that really matters to me.
Fellas, my parents met at a newspaper, right? They met at the Gardner News, this tiny little paper that none of us really read, but that was the paper that our lives unfolded in. Who's hungry? I've been a journalist my entire life. I mean, I've actually never had a job outside the newspaper industry. I've never been paid for a job to do anything else. I don't think anyone would ever hire me to do anything else. I've covered all kinds of things, but I've always come back to incarceration because it's just always been something I think is undercovered everywhere. People randomly taken off the street can decide the future of your liberty. And then you can be shut in a box, potentially for the rest of your life. To have like entire buildings of people whose liberties we've taken away, we hope for good reasons. I don't know, I just feel like places controlled by the government that don't get scrutiny go off the rails sometimes. And that's some place that is not scrutinized. When I was a young reporter, I covered a story at the prison in Gardner. And it was the first time I'd ever been in a prison. So I met this guy who was not that much older than me. He had been in a fight got out of hand, and he went home. Police showed up at his door and said, the other guy in the fight died. He was like, what? The other guy died? And next thing you know, he's serving 15 years to life. You know, we could have been neighbors or brothers or classmates. And I thought, God, this guy is me. This guy is me. And that changed me. And so that set my course for being drawn to this issue for the rest of my career.
So I'm a reporter at the Globe, and I do investigative and narrative work. I started in 2011 doing like very local coverage. I did like animal control board meetings and playground openings. Nothing glamorous. I sort of worked my way onto the Metro desk and onto covering crime. The people that I talk to, they don't get interviewed by the news unless something really awful happens. Nobody cares what their story is, really. But like, I care a lot, and I have found it very meaningful to be able to tell those stories that happen at the fringes. I'm at kind of an amazing place in my career right now. I get to work on big projects with really incredible people. I just won a Pulitzer. That probably isn't the one you can use. I'm sorry. I don't say it ever. Here, sit. Let me put on your sweet little shoes. The work day to day is incredible. But when I think about where I am in my career and how good my life is.
Do you need a push or you got it?
It's about as far from the future that I thought I would have as you can get. When I was a teenager, I was really sick. I had a lot of mental health issues. I wanted to die. I used to cut myself. I was trying to disappear, I think. I'm here because I was put in the hospital repeatedly. I'm much better now. I'm really happy now. But that was luck. I mean, I was born to parents who could help me, and lots of people aren't. I think that it made me the reporter that I am, and it made me comfortable in those excruciating moments where other people might have an impulse to like say something or leave. And I don't have that impulse. I can bear witness to things that are too terrible to look at.
After my dad died, I found this tape of all my different birthday parties from the time I was 1 year old up through my teens. We could have looked like central casting 1950s American Family, except we were of Chinese descent. But I think that my father saw this as a middle-class life, living in Michigan. He thought we were safe. We were in the middle. Being middle is good. After the communists took over in 1949, my parents basically had to flee China. Now, my parents were part of the bourgeoisie class, so you would think that maybe they would say, oh, the communist revolution, which forced my family to leave, you might think that they thought communism was horrible. But the narrative that my family has applied to that period is that if the powerful class of people becomes so detached from the lives of ordinary people that a revolution's around the corner. That's essentially the message that I was raised with. I applied to Harvard, and I got one of those thick envelopes that said I got in. And I remember when I told my dad, and he said, do you realize that if you go to Harvard, you're going to become part of the bourgeoisie class? And then, if there is a communist revolution in the United States, you will be the first to be overthrown. At the time, I had really no idea what that meant. But I knew enough to know that he'd given me a real piece of raw honesty. And I think that that is why, after I graduated from Harvard and was just trying to decide what I wanted to do, journalism was just a great fit for me because this type of work connects you with the lives of ordinary people and has that extra role of holding the powerful institutions accountable.
I carry a lot of people with me. They make me better. And one of those people is a young boy named Nicholas Bombi Davis. He was killed on May 30th in 2010. He took a ride around the block and he never made it back. Nicholas had gone down his street, and as he was rounding the corner, two guys were waiting for him. One pulled him off the scooter, and the other one shot him. He was just 14. This was a young man who was never involved in any type of violence. And he was the latest in a string of killings of young Black men in that one particular neighborhood. Bowdoin, Geneva, that's the neighborhood I grew up in. We went to find out why. It was bigger than Nicholas. It was about the life of young people in a city that's supposed to protect them. It was about moms afraid of raising their children in certain neighborhoods. It was about beautiful lives lost.
I heard from some sources that I know in the legal community about something that seemed so wrong that at first I didn't believe it, or I thought that I must be misunderstanding it. So we started a spotlight investigation into this, which is the felony murder doctrine in Massachusetts. Essentially said that if you're committing a felony with someone else, if anyone dies during the commission of that felony, everyone involved was on the hook for first-degree murder. And that included the person who pulled the trigger, the person who might have been on another part of the house when it happened, and the getaway driver who may never have left the car. All those people were on the hook for first-degree murder. That's life without parole. You leave prison in a casket. In 2017, the Supreme Judicial Court decided that that's simply not fair. You can't convict someone of first-degree murder unless they have some intent to kill. But the ruling was not retroactive. It didn't seem to make any sense. Like, it's not me saying this, it's the court, it's the Supreme Judicial Court saying that we should never do this again. But we're not gonna fix it for the people we already did it to. That didn't make any sense to me. I got to see Jabir because this was his story. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole, even though the state would agree he never killed anyone, he never hurt anyone. What Jabir says is that he was part of a drug transaction, trying to buy cocaine in a house in Dorchester in the mid-'80s. On another floor of the house, a man was killed. And because someone died during that commission of that armed robbery, Jabir was on the hook for first-degree murder. So he served nearly 38 years after being convicted in a manner that the Supreme Judicial Court says is unjust.
I think about that view. It's like you've fallen into a crack in the city, and you're just lost. I thought there's no way that someone was even standing on the loading dock, let alone giving birth on the loading dock. Her blood was still on the concrete. I came back later and found Marie. She told us her story. Marie was a homeless woman dealing with heroin addiction, and she had a baby on a loading dock on one of the coldest nights of the year. And the baby nearly died, and Marie nearly died, and I wrote about her. Marie had been trying to disappear herself, and heroin was what she chose. When Marie was explaining the ritual of shooting up, and she said, you know, how some people cut, I felt this very strange feeling of recognition because I know what she means. The story wasn't news at all. It was something that usually a newspaper would look at and say, this is a sad and small and ugly thing that has no greater meaning to the wider world. And in a way, that's true. But I had just had my daughter, and it felt insane to me that someone could have a child in the middle of the night on a loading dock while cars whipped past onto the freeway, and that no one would care. So the very fact that it doesn't matter was what made me feel like it should matter.
I think I ponder a lot sort of what is fair, because I think it's a real puzzle as to how you organize society, because there's always going to be inequality. The question is, you know, at what point does it become so extreme? I think my father's warnings were very on target. I mean, if you take our country, we have more income inequality now than ever before. And I think a lot of people feel in their gut that there's something deeply wrong with the vast amount of inequality in this country. One of the strengths of this country, then, is that you do have the role of the media. I think it's important for people to realize the ways in which there are abuses of power going on behind the scenes all the time.
Nicholas is dead. He showed us a video of young Nicholas playing in the summer on a hot day and kicking the water and having a great time. And to think of him not being around was a hard thing to take. I just felt everything that they felt, to the point of I felt like I completely lost myself in that family. I went with them to the trial of the killers. When the verdict was read, Nicholas's mom, she buried her head in my shoulder, clung to me and wept. And I had been the only person there the entire 2 weeks. And I was telling their story. It reminded me of what my real purpose is as a journalist, too. I'm there for people like Nicholas and his family. And I know they felt heard and they felt seen.
On the wall in my office, I have a poem that I really love called Musée des Beaux-Arts. The last stanza is about a Bruegel painting called The Fall of Icarus. In the painting, you can see like a hillside with a farmer with a plow. And Icarus is in the painting, but at the very bottom right corner, and all you can see is his legs as he goes underwater. The myth of Icarus is this incredible tale, but to the plowman, it's nothing. And it's Icarus as he probably would have been in real life, then or now, which is forgotten and ignored and not important. I think the world is full of Icaruses. Like Marie. No one was ever gonna look at Marie. No one was ever gonna know about her baby. She could have just fallen into the ocean. But after the story ran, I got inundated with emails and phone calls and people looking to help Marie. It was kind of incredible.
How small a space can someone actually form what you would consider an enlightened life? Could you live a fulfilled and enlightened life in just your town if you're never allowed to leave? And then keep shrinking it down, then shrink it down to a space the size of a gas station restroom. A little concrete box. Could you live an enlightened life in that space? You know, Jabir did it. After 38 years in prison, Jabir petitioned the state Supreme Court for a new trial and was released on bail. 6 months after the story ran, prosecutors dropped his case.
Hey, you made it, huh?
Right on, man.
Did you get taller?
How are you? Did you? How are you, brother?
Up and down, man,
Yeah.
but one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, good to see you.
You too, man.
You look good. You look like freedom suits you.
It does. I look a whole lot better than incarceration. You know what I mean? How's life treating you?
Jabir is free. And would that have been the case if his story had never been told? I don't know. But I can't see how putting his story out in the world could have anything but an effect. We took an invisible guy who had been locked away for almost 4 decades, and we listened. We did something that he was unable to do, was we took his story and we presented it on the front page of the Sunday paper of the Boston Sunday Globe. And we got people thinking about things that they don't normally think about, which is, what's just?
I carry Nicholas with me. He's buried not far from my home. Over the years, I've gone into the cemetery and walk up to his gravesite. I sometimes say a little prayer, or sometimes I'll say, "Hi, Nicholas." One of the things about covering communities that are plagued with violence is that they're often defined by the violence. But in their story, there is a story of love. There's some tangible things that came out of this reporting, but there are things that you can't always measure. If we weren't there, he would just be another data point. But in doing this work, we gave that data a name and a voice.
I feel like when we publish a story, it does hand the duty of witnessing off to the reader. You know, I saw it in real time with Marie. Readers eagerly took up that duty. I feel like when you can illuminate a person and make them real, then they're not theoretical anymore and you can't turn away from them. So, I mean, it is my hope that with the stories that we publish, readers see and act.
As soon as we press send and the story is published, so many things happen at once. The printing presses get moving, the newspapers are printed, the trucks pick them up and deliver it, the story goes online, and then the story is out there. Thousands and thousands of people are reading it. And we hope that this journalism will move people. We want people to feel something when they read these things. You're supposed to be angry. The world should not be like this, and so we want people to demand better of the world. Our offices are in the central hub of a lot of powerful institutions. City Hall's right nearby. Lots of top corporations are here. In the work that we do, it's great to think that you've created a feeling of fear, maybe, in the minds of very powerful people. That there is this kind of witness to what they're doing. There are things going on in all these buildings. I just hope that we're not missing something big. And I hope we deserve the trust that people give us.